I've been seeing a quote going around on social media, and it says, "Due to cutbacks, the light at the end of the tunnel has been switched off." And that seems about right. 2020 has begun with fire and ice. Australia is on fire, and we're under icy water in January. The climate emergency is here, there, and everywhere. We've just experienced the tragedy of a civilian aircraft being downed by missiles as the political situation in Iran and Iraq grows even more unstable. New Canadians who turn to Canada for a better life have been killed for no reason at all. Millions of refugees continue to be stranded across the world, some fleeing natural disasters, others escaping persecution and conflict, all still waiting for a chance to live freely. Not to mention that surprise text message this morning about the nuclear catastrophe happening at the Pickering plant. Luckily, that one was a mistake. But really, it has felt for me these days that the light at the end of the tunnel has been switched off, and I'm stumbling forward into the dark. And that's when I try to remember to turn to the light of the chalice. Now, I do this as a concrete spiritual practice. I light a chalice most days and meditate on the flame for a few minutes, reminding myself of the light of life, of that force of energy within each of us, of the resilient beauty of the earth. And I turn to the chalice light as metaphor, this spark of life that exists in each one of us. That light in the tunnel may be off, but there are lights all around in all of us. And so I eventually remember to look that there is light and begin to look for it. In the hundreds of people caring for all the koalas and kangaroos injured by the wildfires, in Greta Thunberg and the 20 youth activists challenging business leaders at Davos to face the climate emergency and act, in the people here in this congregation and elsewhere helping refugees reach safety and start new lives. Light is present in the midst of all of the worries and tragedies, and there are lights shining on many paths to the future. So if you are struggling, take the time to mourn and fear, knowing that feeling grief is a sign of your love and compassion. And then take a deep breath and look for the light. And my own sense is that when people act with integrity, when we act in alignment with our values, we ourselves shine more brightly. We have that clarity of being. Just look at Greta Thunberg. She's been able to focus her energy wholeheartedly on the climate crisis and has become a blazing beacon for all of us. I think we need our personal integrity more in chaotic times. Personal integrity, living truthfully of ourselves, keeps us grounded in the midst of the chaos and confusion that surrounds us. And I don't mean that we need to become pillars of perfection, but that we must take seriously our values and live truthfully in the world by directing our energy to what matters to us. Unitarian Universalism is often identified as the religion where you can believe anything you want. And that's not accurate, but it does contain a grain of truth. We don't hold beliefs in common, so you can worship or not the deity or deities of your choice. There is freedom and expanse in that. But there is also responsibility. All of us are asked to live by the values expressed in the 7 principles. As people of the chalice, we're expected to take those principles seriously. The inherent worth and dignity of every person includes our exasperating colleagues. Respecting the interdependent web of all life means considering the environmental impact of your choices. To be a Unitarian Universalist of integrity takes time, takes practice, it takes effort and energy. And we each have the responsibility to sort out how those principles weave together in particular for ourselves. For myself, I think of them as sort of internal boundary markers, small stones that provide a guiding framework for my journey. The principles don't prevent me from stepping outside of them or far away, but they're always there, quietly, solidly, pointing the way back towards what matters to me. And as we don't just settle for 7 principles. Nationally, we have 5 aspirations which we are called to direct our energy towards. And these include ways to be radically inclusive and deeply connected. And at UCM, we are even more ambitious. As we deal with principles and aspirations, we also seek to deepen in spirit, nurture community, and act for an equitable and sustainable world. It is no wonder there are so many retirees here, because practicing Unitarian Universalism can be a full-time job. And my hope is that you find identifying your internal boundary markers a rewarding exercise. As the saying goes, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And living your values is a way to live your truth. As Oscar Wilde said, be yourself. Everyone else is taken. And the truth of you and who you are and what you value will shift with time and situation. Values shift in priority. The boundary markers may need to be moved. And that's why we need that ongoing practice of integrity, of checking in with yourself. Sometimes it will all align and your light will burn brightly. And sometimes it will be a struggle when values conflict or you lose sight of what matters most to you. But even when we make mistakes, and we will make big falling down mistakes, the boundary markers are there to guide you back. The principles are there to help you. And making choices in alignment with our values, it is empowering. It gives us some hope in hard times. It makes us feel a little bit less helpless in the midst of all that confusion. And by directing our energy towards what matters to us, our lights become beacons of possibility. These words come from Mark Nepo. Some say there's a fire at the center of our being. How does anyone know? Though I believe it. Sometimes in dreams I go there, and it's not some hell. More like a lake of light that drinking from heals. And healing is not erasing what life does to us. Rather, drinking from the center knits all the scars into a fabric that can't be torn. Regardless of how we get there, no matter what is broken or lost, the weave binds us. We call its pattern beauty. Unitarian Universalism asks each of us to seek integrity, to consider the meaning and purpose of the principles and how we can express them for ourselves in our living. And we can do this pretty easily when we're doing well. It's easy enough to be patient with friends acting out badly and kind when someone else is not. But it can also be a challenge. How do you forgive great harm? How do you respect someone's dignity while not condoning their damaging actions? And how do we manage our own integrity when we are the ones doing the damage? When we are the unkind, the cruel, the liars, and the cheaters? It becomes easy to say when we do something wrong that it's just an aberration, just a mistake, or even justify it to ourselves as the thing we had to do. But when someone else does something wrong, we're much quicker to assume it's a character flaw. They can be wrong and we're eager to judge. Political parties can be particularly good at this twisty activity. We want and need and should think well of ourselves. But it's no good pretending we haven't been destructive in our lives, whether it is harm that we've directed internally towards ourselves or outwardly to others. Burying our mistakes only gives them ground in which to grow. Some of you may know the mystery writer Louise Penny, who has written a very popular series of books about a police inspector in Montreal, Armand Gamache. And in her most recent book, Gamache recalls a mentor telling him about integrity. And the mentor said to him, "Our lives are like an Aboriginal longhouse, just one huge room. If we think we can compartmentalize things, we are deluding ourselves. Everyone we meet, every word we speak, every action taken or not taken, lives in our longhouse, with us, always. Be very, very careful who you let into your life, and learn to make peace with whatever happens. You can't erase the past. It's in there with you, but you can make peace with it. If you don't, you'll be at perpetual war, and the enemy you'll be fighting is yourself. Our inner life is a longhouse, a fire burns steadily at its center, and the shadows may be pushed to the far corners, but it is all one room. Compartmentalizing away our shameful behavior just puts boxes all over the floor, and then we pretend they're not there, and we trip over them anyways. So we have to figure out how to be at peace with ourselves and with our choices, with all that we have done or not done, our shames and regrets. And it's an ongoing process to integrate the light and the dark, accept ourselves as we are and all we have done. Our inner life is a longhouse full of light and shadows together. Everyone we meet, every word we speak, every action taken or not taken lives in our longhouse. And well, I can say I do find this a little intense. That's a lot of pressure. And yet I know it's the truth of how we are, who we are. It's by our words spoken and our actions taken over the years. It's by our relationships that we have shaped who we are right now in this moment. And so that means we need to deal with those times when we've broken our integrity, when we ourselves have been the cruel and the selfish and the harmful. The ancient Chinese had a practice of repairing and embellishing valued possessions with gold leaf. This says, we value this bowl enough to repair it, but we dishonor this bowl if we pretend it did not break. So we don't try to cover up the damage, hide it away. We adorn it instead with gold. The cracks are obvious, but we've been treated and tended with care. And so that aesthetic of a bowl that has been cracked but is still here, it's not been returned to its original state, but it's been restored to wholeness nonetheless. And that makes it all the more beautiful. Opening up those boxes we've shed away, admitting the truth, it's a way of saying we value ourselves, we value our integrity enough to repair it. We dishonor ourselves when we avoid honesty, because honesty allows us to take on responsibility for the consequences of our choices, to repair what we have broken. Reparations can be as simple as apologizing when our feelings have gone sideways and a bystander gets caught up in our frustration. Can be as big as pleading guilty in court, or reaching out to someone we have harmed and just listening to the impact of our actions without denial or defensiveness. Taking responsibility, making reparations if possible, mends the cracks. And someone might even add a little gold leaf to make them beautiful. The cracks, the scars of ourselves don't disappear. They may fade with time, but they remain as part of who we are. And Richard Wagamese says that scars have the strange ability to remind us that the past was real, and what is real offers knowledge, understanding, and forgiveness. The truth of ourselves brings consequences, but consequences aren't always negative. What is real offers knowledge, understanding, and even forgiveness. So let us honor our truth, admit our truths, and accept the consequences. So say we all.